Are the gas stations you're filling up at slowly destroying your engine with low-quality fuel, old infrastructure, and contaminated storage tanks? And is there actually a difference between the premium gas at a major brand station versus the discount station down the street? After over 20 years diagnosing fuel system problems, carbon buildup, and engine failures traced back to fuel quality, I'm going to expose what the fuel industry doesn't want you to know. The truth is that fuel quality varies dramatically between stations, and choosing the wrong one can cost you thousands in fuel system repairs, carbon cleaning, and premature engine failure. Today, I'm breaking down which gas stations are actually damaging your engine, why it happens, and how to identify safe stations versus problem stations in your area. Let's get into the truth. First, let's establish what makes fuel quality good versus bad, because most people think all gasoline is basically the same. It's not. Fuel quality depends on three critical factors: the base fuel formulation, the additive package that keeps your fuel system clean, and the storage and handling that determines whether the fuel is contaminated before it ever reaches your tank. Let's start with base fuel. All gasoline in a given region typically comes from the same few refineries. Whether you're filling up at Shell, BP, Exxon, Chevron, or a no-name discount station, the base fuel often comes from the same pipeline or terminal. That part is actually true. The base fuel is largely commodity product. But here's where things diverge. What happens to that fuel after it leaves the terminal? Major branded stations, Shell, Chevron, BP, Exxon, Mobil, Texaco, add proprietary detergent additive packages to their fuel at the terminal before it's loaded onto delivery trucks. These additives are designed to clean fuel injectors, intake valves, and combustion chambers. They prevent carbon deposits from forming and actually remove existing deposits over time. Brands like Chevron with Techron, Shell with V-Power, and Exxon with Synergy invest heavily in additive chemistry. These additives are expensive, and they genuinely improve fuel system cleanliness and engine performance. Discount stations and off-brand stations often use the same base fuel, but add either minimal detergents, just enough to meet EPA minimum requirements, or sometimes no additives beyond what's legally required. They're buying the cheapest fuel possible and reselling it with minimal markup. There's no proprietary additive package. There's no investment in fuel system cleanliness. You're getting base fuel that meets legal minimums, but nothing more. Over time, that difference matters. Engines running on fuel with strong detergent packages stay cleaner. Fuel injectors maintain proper spray patterns. Intake valves don't build up carbon deposits. Combustion chambers stay cleaner, which prevents hot spots that can cause pre-ignition or knock. Engines running on minimum detergent fuel accumulate deposits. Injectors get clogged and don't spray properly, reducing fuel economy and power. Intake valves get carboned up, especially on direct injection engines. Combustion chambers develop deposits that increase compression and cause knocking or pre-ignition issues. I've done fuel system cleanings on cars that exclusively used discount gas, and the difference is shocking. I've pulled injectors that were 40 to 50% clogged with varnish and deposits. I've scoped intake valves on GDI engines that looked like they had 200,000 miles of buildup when the car only had 80,000 miles. These problems are directly linked to poor fuel quality over time. Now let's talk about the second major issue: contaminated fuel from poorly maintained storage tanks. Gas stations have underground storage tanks that hold thousands of gallons of fuel. These tanks are supposed to be regularly inspected, maintained, and cleaned. In reality, many stations, especially older discount stations, neglect this maintenance. Underground tanks can accumulate water from condensation or leaks. Water is heavier than gasoline, so it settles at the bottom of the tank. When the fuel level gets low, the pump starts drawing from the bottom where the water is. You fill up, and now you've got water in your tank. Water in fuel causes immediate problems: rough running, misfires, stalling, and potential damage to fuel pumps and injectors. In severe cases, water can cause rust and corrosion in your fuel system. Tanks can also accumulate sediment, rust from the tank itself, dirt, debris, microbial growth. Again, this settles at the bottom. When the station gets a fuel delivery and the new fuel stirs up the tank, all that sediment gets suspended and can make it into your tank. I've seen fuel filters completely clogged after a single fill-up at a contaminated station. I've seen fuel pumps fail prematurely from running sediment-laden fuel. Older stations with single-wall steel tanks are particularly prone to these problems. Modern stations use double-wall fiberglass tanks with leak detection and better contamination control. But plenty of older stations are still operating with 30 or 40-year-old infrastructure that's corroding and contaminated. Here's how you identify problem stations. First, avoid stations that consistently have the cheapest prices in your area by a significant margin. If every station is selling regular for $3.20 per gallon and one station is at $2.95, ask yourself why. They're either buying lower quality fuel, they're not adding detergent packages, or they're cutting corners somewhere. Extremely low prices are a red flag. Second, avoid stations that look poorly maintained. If the pumps are old and beaten up, the pavement is cracked, the signage is faded, and the property looks neglected, the underground infrastructure is probably neglected too. Stations that can't afford to maintain what you can see definitely aren't maintaining what you can't see. Third, avoid stations with very low traffic volume. Fuel sitting in underground tanks for weeks or months has more time to accumulate condensation and contamination. High-volume stations turn over their fuel inventory quickly, sometimes daily, which means you're getting fresher fuel that's spent less time in the tank. Low-volume stations might have fuel that's been sitting for a month, collecting water and breaking down. Fourth, avoid filling up right after you see a tanker truck at the station. When a station receives a fuel delivery, the incoming fuel stirs up sediment at the bottom of the storage tank. For the next few hours, that sediment is suspended in the fuel and can make it into your tank. If you see a tanker at a station, come back the next day after things have settled. Fifth, pay attention to how your car runs after filling up at a specific station. If you consistently get poor fuel economy, rough idle, hesitation, or check engine lights after filling up at the same station, that's a sign the fuel quality is poor or contaminated. Switch stations and see if the problem goes away. Let me give you a real-world example. I had a customer with a 2019 Honda CR-V with the 1.5-liter turbo. She came in with a check engine light for multiple cylinder misfires. The car had 45,000 miles. I pulled the spark plugs, they were fouled with carbon deposits. I scoped the combustion chambers, heavy carbon buildup. I checked the fuel injectors, clogged, poor spray pattern. I asked where she'd been buying gas. She'd been exclusively using a discount station near her house because it was 15 to 20 cents cheaper per gallon. She'd saved maybe $200 over 2 years. The fuel system cleaning I had to do cost her $350. If the problem had gone longer, she'd be looking at injector replacement for $800 to $1,200. She saved pennies and spent dollars. After the cleaning, I told her to switch to a top-tier certified station, Shell, Chevron, Costco, or similar. 6 months later, I checked the car again. The combustion chambers were cleaner, the injectors were flowing properly, the difference was night and day. Good fuel prevents problems, bad fuel creates them. Now let's address the top-tier certification program because this is critical. Top Tier is a fuel standard created by automakers including BMW, General Motors, Honda, Toyota, Volkswagen, and Audi. That requires higher detergent levels than EPA minimums. Top-tier fuels must meet strict performance standards for keeping engines clean. Stations that carry top-tier certification include Chevron, Shell, Exxon, Mobil, BP, Texaco, Costco, Sam's Club, and several others. You can find the full list at toptiergas.com. These stations have committed to using fuel additives that meet the higher top-tier standard. If you want to protect your engine, especially if you have a modern direct injection or turbocharged engine, use top-tier fuel exclusively. Non-top-tier stations are using fuel that meets EPA minimums but not the higher top-tier standard. That means less detergent, more deposits, more problems over time. Some of the worst offenders are regional discount chains and unbranded independent stations that compete purely on price. Now, does this mean you need to use premium fuel? No. Top-tier certification applies to all grades, regular, mid-grade, and premium. If your engine is designed for regular 87 octane, use top-tier regular. You're getting the detergent benefit without paying for higher octane you don't need. Only use premium if your engine requires it or if you're experiencing knock-on regular. Here's another issue: ethanol content and quality. Most gasoline in the US contains up to 10% ethanol, E10. Ethanol attracts moisture, which can lead to phase separation where water and ethanol separate from the gasoline. This is more likely to happen at stations with low turnover where fuel sits for long periods. High-quality stations with good turnover and proper storage minimize this risk. Low-quality stations with old infrastructure and slow sales maximize it. Some stations also sell E15 or higher ethanol blends which aren't approved for use in many vehicles, especially those made before 2001 and many small engines. Using E15 in a non-approved vehicle can damage fuel system components and void warranties. Always check the pump label and make sure you're selecting the correct fuel for your vehicle. Let me give you another example. A customer with a 2017 Ford F-150 EcoBoost came in with severe carbon buildup on the intake valves, a common issue on direct injection engines. He'd been using a discount station for 3 years. I cleaned the valves, 600 service. I told him to switch to Shell or Chevron with their enhanced detergent packages. A year later, the valves were still clean. Good fuel with strong detergents was preventing the problem from recurring. So here's what you need to do immediately. First, identify top-tier certified stations in your area. Go to toptiergas.com and find stations near you. Make those your primary fueling locations. Yes, they might cost 5 to 10 cents more per gallon. Over a year, that's maybe $100 to $150 extra, but you're preventing fuel system problems that cost $500 to $2,000 to fix. Second, avoid discount stations with the cheapest prices unless they're top-tier certified. Costco and Sam's Club are both top-tier and often competitively priced. They're excellent choices. But if you see an unbranded station selling gas for 20 cents less than everyone else, there's a reason, and it's not a good one. Third, avoid stations that look poorly maintained or have very low traffic. Stick to busy, well-maintained stations from reputable brands. High turnover means fresh fuel. Good maintenance means clean tanks. Fourth, don't fill up right after a tanker delivery. If you see a fuel truck at your regular station, wait until the next day, let the sediment settle. Fifth, if you've been using discount fuel for years, consider running a fuel system cleaner through your tank. Products like Chevron Techron or Lucas Fuel Treatment can help remove deposits that have accumulated. Or take your car to a shop for a professional fuel system cleaning if you're experiencing symptoms like rough idle, poor fuel economy, or hesitation. Sixth, if you have a direct injection engine, be especially vigilant about fuel quality. GDI engines are prone to intake valve carbon buildup because fuel doesn't wash over the valves. Good fuel with strong detergents helps minimize this, but it doesn't eliminate it. You may still need periodic intake valve cleaning as preventive maintenance. Here's the bottom line. Not all gas stations are equal. Major branded stations with top-tier certification use higher quality detergent packages that keep your fuel system clean and prevent deposits. Discount stations often use minimal detergents and have poorly maintained infrastructure that can contaminate fuel with water and sediment. Over time, using low-quality fuel causes carbon buildup, clogged injectors, rough running, and expensive repairs. The fuel industry doesn't advertise this because discount stations don't want you to know their fuel is inferior, and even major brands don't want to explicitly bash competitors. But the data is clear. Engines running on top-tier fuel stay cleaner and have fewer fuel system problems than engines running on minimum detergent fuel. You're not being paranoid by avoiding discount stations. You're being smart. Spend the extra few dollars per tank on quality fuel and save thousands on repairs. It's the easiest and cheapest preventive maintenance you can do. Where do you currently buy gas, and have you noticed any difference in how your engine runs based on which station you use? Drop a comment. I want to hear real-world experiences from people who've switched stations and seen results. And if this video just changed how you think about where you buy gas, hit that like button. We're exposing the hidden factors that affect your engine so you can make informed decisions. Next week, I'm breaking down whether fuel additives actually work or if you're just wasting money on bottles of hope. You're going to want to see that. If you're not subscribed, hit that button now. Drop a comment. I respond to everyone.